Welcome back to Empire Sports of Mind. I was about to say welcome to Yankees opening day, but Yankees opening day is 3 days away. It's
Got a
Monday,
little bit.
March 27th. We have some news on that. We have some Giants and Jets updates. We have our final Yankees profile projections, and we'll talk about the Rangers and Knicks. So let's get right into it with the Yankees.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. League meetings for the NFL this week. The NFL offseason seems to never have an end to it. It always seems to like keep going with we talk about the
Mhm.
draft, you talk about the league
Yeah,
meetings,
it
all
does.
these
It's
other. The
true.
NFL's winning in that regard. I mean, they're always a top story, even on our podcast. It shows. But first, I'll give you some Giant updates.
Oh yeah.
John
Mhm.
Mara, the owner of the Giants, spoke today. He stated that Saquon wants to be a Giant for life, and he mentioned the state of that running back market and the limit how far the team could go.
Mhm.
He also is in favor of re-signing Odell, so that's an interesting nugget. It seems like the Jets are also going after him, so maybe some competition for Douglas and the Jets. Also, that he said that Leonard Williams is likely to stay on the team and won't take a pay cut, and they're content with letting Saquon play on the franchise tag. They're not really in a rush to get a deal done with him. And they also mentioned Bredston, Lemieux, and Jack Anderson as center options, and plus possible free agent targets, or they would have to draft a center. So there's some Giant updates, Matthew. I don't know what your thoughts on those, but seems like not really that much new info. But I think the Odell info is kind of new because they seem like they were out on him, but look, if the price is right, I think they're going to go after him because they still need wide receiver help.
Yeah, my takeaway from this is I know some people are saying, oh, by John Mara saying that he wants Odell, he's putting a lot of pressure on Joe Shane. I kind of disagree. I think a lot of the meeting was kind of deflecting and saying, oh, no, we're leaving it up to Dable and Joe Shane. That was kind of the message with Odell. He was like, I wouldn't really be opposed to it, but of course it's up to and this is a guy, John Mara, who's been very involved in the franchise in the past, and to a fault. A lot of fans across the NFL consider him a very bad owner for that. Getting in, choosing, basically handpicking Dave Gettleman as a GM instead of doing a proper interview process. So to me, I thought this was encouraging that he's letting Joe Shane and Brian Dable do their jobs. Doesn't seem like he's too involved, and he like the center. I think the center discussion is the perfect the epitome of that. He's saying, oh no, we have some options in house. We'll also look in the draft, and we'll also look in free agency. And I trust that Joe Shane will make the right decision at the center position. So I mean, overall, I can't say like there's anything surprising, but I'm pleased with that.
Yeah, as you said, John Murray doesn't like to get involved with the team. Looks like it's a little different across town. Woody Johnson, he likes to go after players that big time players that are available to get the ticket prices up. I think you see it this offseason with the Rodgers pursuit. I think he was at the forefront. I mean, I think Douglas and Salah, they both were interested in getting him. But I think if Woody Johnson was the main guy in going after him, I think that look, obviously, I'll give you some Jets update right now. We'll lead into that. Robert Saleh spoke in the media this morning at the league meetings. And he says he has nothing on Aaron Rodgers because he's still under contract with the Packers. Says he's been in contact with Zach Wilson post Rodgers McAfee appearance. Said he's been great. And he says, the trade, he's still optimistic it's going to get done. He didn't mention it by name, the Rodgers, but he said the quarterback situation expects to be done soon. He says that they're in no rush to add him, which I agree with. I think the Jets shouldn't be. They shouldn't show the Packers they're in any rush because that would negate all the leverage they have. And I cannot wait until this trade's done because I can't wait to stop talking about the leverage discussion. Who has this? Who has the leverage? I said it last episode. No one has leverage. Everyone arguing on Twitter, all these Packers fans are so clueless. They're like, "Oh, we want Sauce Gardner. We want a first round." Are you kidding me? That's not what the Jets are going to give up. They're not going to give up a first rounder. The GM said it tonight. He said that they're necessarily probably not going to get a first rounder. So that's what does that show you? That shows you they probably have no leverage here. They're probably realizing that hey, they want to get this guy out of town. Rodgers, obviously, they clearly don't want him. And the trade's probably going to get done, probably, my guess is draft week. Because if it goes past the draft, the Packers are not going to get any draft picks this year. And it's going to go to 2024, where the Jets' pick's probably going to be lower because they're going to have a better team with Rodgers. So why would the Packers want to do that? So everyone's saying the Packers have leverage, all the leverage wrong. Everyone says that the Jets having all the leverage is wrong. I think both teams do not have leverage. They both need a deal done. And I think it's going to but I think cooler heads are going to prevail. But it seems like the Packers are like really like how they run as an organization is so weird because they don't have an owner. They're the only team in the NFL that does not have an owner, which is so interesting to me. Like that, the whole power structure is very unique in that sense. But we'll see what happens. Another update from the Jets. Robert Saleh on the interest in Odell Beckham. He says there's always interest in adding a great player. Points more towards Joe Douglas for that question. It's a GM. And the Jets are for sure interested in free agent center Ben Jones, who I really want them to go after. I think he's the best center available on the market right now. The Jets obviously need a center. That's a hole in their team. You get Ben Jones. He's an old veteran. You sign him, and then you draft a center maybe in the second round, which I think is the best route for them to take there. He says,
Yeah.
and all right, Matthew, I'll have you speak a little bit on that.
Yeah, so on the Rodgers thing, I think for both teams, this is kind of a weird situation because, like you said, the Jets have kind of no backup plan, really. I guess the backup plan is Zach Wilson, but obviously Jets fans would be very, very disappointed if that happened. So, yeah, in that sense, it's very weird for the Packers. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Offloading those draft picks to maybe next year, where the draft picks are going to be worse. It just feels like a weird situation overall. Both teams are kind of in bad positions. And I think that both teams probably I don't even know what both teams are thinking. They might think that they have leverage over one because there's reasons to think that the
Yeah,
Packers don't have leverage and then the Jets don't have leverage from the opposing side. So my guess is that the $60 million that they're going to owe Aaron Rodgers, that's got to be like a pushing point. At least like the Packers, you're not going to pay him $60 million to do nothing. So I think when do these payments start cashing in? I don't know exactly the date. Is it
it's yeah. The date actually is prior to week one. It's that week of the first game. So there's no like hard deadline for the trade talks. That's what
Oh, okay. So
probably
yeah,
what's
that
happened.
is yeah. So that's a little disappointing then for at least
Yeah.
for Jets fans because the Packs kind of stalled this out, especially if it doesn't happen at draft week. Then there's really no motivation. They can wait until the summer, August, September, which we've seen rumors of. So it's a
Yeah.
weird situation overall. But I think eventually the Packers just can't afford to pay him $60 million to do nothing. So he'll end
Oh
up.
yeah, you're absolutely. Yeah, the Packers are gonna have to eventually trade him. He's not gonna be on the team next year. Everyone knows that. But I think you're right. I think after the draft, the leverage shifts to the Packers a little bit because you're right. They don't have to rush him out of there because they don't owe him that 60 million to week one. So you're
Mhm.
right. After the draft, I guess they don't care. Maybe honestly, after the draft, I don't know. Like I still don't know what the trade package would be. It's such a unique situation. I still think this gets hammered out before the draft. It doesn't make any sense for the Packers to wait it out. Like just in my opinion, I said it. I think I've said it a couple episodes ago. I think it's going to take a second round pick. Now the Jets now have 2 second round picks after trading. Maybe we'll get into that. Trading Elijah Moore to the Cleveland
Yeah.
Browns for
Mhm.
a second, and the Jets also traded a third-round pick to the Cleveland Browns. So my
Mhm.
thoughts on that is, it was interesting. You saw the Hardman signing from the Chiefs. I think he's a good addition to the team. They needed a kick and punt returner after Braxton Berrios left. He fills that role. He's a speedy guy. He could be a deep threat at times. I think he's a good wide receiver four, which is probably what he's going to be on the team. It was a good Braxton Berrios replacement. I thought it was just a Braxton Berrios replacement, not Elijah Moore. Turns out it was probably Elijah Moore
Yeah.
replacement because you see the trade went down an hour later, and I was like, wow, that's weird. Like he got traded. I thought they were going to keep him then, but look, I don't have a problem with the trade. I wouldn't personally have done it. I thought highly of Elijah Moore throughout last year. Matthew knows that, but I don't know. Like the wide receiver room is pretty deep, and especially if you had OBJ, I think he's probably not going to get playing time. He's probably going to complain again about his amount of touches he has. So maybe it's for the better. But I think he's still going to be a good receiver in Cleveland. I still think he has a lot of
Mhm.
talent. Hope maybe it translates. I don't know. The person kind of disappointed me after he requested the trade after a 3-game winning streak. That's not a team thing to do. But maybe the Jets were still ticked off at that, and they just let him go. So
Yeah,
uh,
that was also a weird situation. The first report was that the Jets trade Elijah Moore for a second round pick, and we were like, oh wow, what a trade. The production didn't really match. It was a high second round pick.
yeah,
Then it comes back to the Jets trade a third round pick for the trade itself. I think that the Jets kind of maybe not individual on the trade. And I don't know if they win or lose, but overall on the investment on Elijah Moore, they've lost. They
yeah,
lost that. And it's a little unfortunate because he obviously very talented. And I agree with you I saw them sign Mecole Hardman. And by the way, I don't know if we know. Do we know the terms of
yeah. The
the?
cap hit.
Yeah.
It says it was initially reported that it was up to $6 million, but the cap hit's like 1.8 million. It really is
Okay.
great. I think it's a great deal for the
And how
Jets.
many years is it?
It's like I think it's maybe 2. I think they can get out of it after 2 years. I think
Okay.
with the guarantees.
Yeah, so that I mean, either way, I agree with you. I thought if it was an upgrade over Braxton Berrios, but then I feel like it's kind of a horizontal movement from Elijah Moore to Mecole
Yeah,
Hardman. I think like one is like significant. Mecole Hardman's not had like 1,000 yard seasons in the past. So overall, I'm not gonna like berate the Jets for this individual move. Overall, in the investment, obviously they missed, but no, for this, I feel like a lot. Maybe Mecole Hardman's probably a little better than Elijah Moore, but I mean, it's a difficult situation.
yeah, it is. Another note that Robert Saleh said today is Zach Wilson will be their number 2 quarterback. What a disaster it would be if Rodgers gets hurt. He's 40 years old. Anything's possible. Anything's on the table. Then you have
Mhm.
Zach Wilson. you're back to square one. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't really agree with him being the second quarterback. I think there's quarterbacks out there in the market that you could go after as a
Yeah.
good backup. Brissett signed. Teddy Bridgewater's out there, probably too high of a price for the Jets for a backup. But guys like Chad Henne, you could get maybe possibly
He's
get him out of
retired. Yeah.
retirement. Like guy, but there's still the names are drawing a blank on me. But I saw yesterday there's still like
There's
decent
still a few
backup
names out there.
options.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would have that. I would honestly kind of like a red shirt situation in college, where just sit out Zach Wilson, not have him potentially play as a backup. I don't really agree with that. Maybe that's going to change. Maybe that's just Robert Saleh saying that to boost his confidence a little bit. I don't know about that situation. I'm not going to look that too much into it, but it could be possible. And if it
Yeah,
is,
you
I don't
never
agree with
know. I
it.
feel like they could say Zach Wilson's the. I mean, I don't really know, but they could say Zach Wilson's the backup this year. They could draft somebody in the fourth, fifth round, sit behind Rodgers and Wilson, and then eventually, I don't know. I think that has to be on the table potentially, but I think they're still at this point, given what the Jets have done in free agency, kind of like the lack of offensive line signings. I know they've been interested in Ben Jones, but I think the Jets kind of do have to focus on adding actual depth, people who might play this season, especially on the offensive line, even on the defensive side of the ball first before draft. I don't think a quarterback. I agree. I would get somebody cheap off.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. They have too many. I mean, they don't have a lot of holes, but I think there's enough
Yeah.
holes to not worry
And,
about
mhm.
quarterback. I don't think it makes so much sense.
Yeah, and then the backup for depth. I think at this point, there's like, I mean, there's no starters on the offensive line. I mean, there's some, but there's some positions without starters on the offensive line, let
Yeah,
alone backups. So you need to draft starters, backups. I mean, there needs to be options there. So I think overall, just looking at the roster, I think they're look. I mean, they're kind of spending big, getting Lazard, maybe Ben Jones, Hardman, and Rogers. And then I think that they're right, and then they're gonna. I think they're right by doing that, but then they're gonna fill in the holes with the
yeah.
draft.
Yeah, you mentioned offensive line. Mekhi Becton, a guy that's very interested. He's kind of missed the past two
Yeah.
seasons.
Mhm.
He's apparently working hard at it. He's actually under his combine weight of 355. He's probably on. So he's trying to get back out there. Obviously, I mean, it's his contract year, right? I mean, Jets have to make a decision on his fifth-year option.
It's his
Douglas
fourth
said today
year?
that it's his fourth year already. Had
Wow,
a
okay.
stellar rookie season, then missed 2 and 3 with injuries. Unfortunately, I mean, he really couldn't
Mhm.
get back on the field. But Robert Saleh on him, he looks good, man. That's what you got. He looks good. Honestly, I
Okay.
mean, look, I said it before. I don't think the Jets should rely on him as a starter, but you have to prepare for the worst with him not playing probably. But if he's a guy that can play games for your team, he has all the talent in the world. I really think he's a good. If he stays healthy, he could be a pretty good left tackle. And if he stays healthy, that's gonna be a plus for the Jets because, as you said, they have a lot of holes in their offensive line. They need a tackle. They need a center. They probably the guard's probably set because they have Laken Tomlinson and Elijah Vera Tucker. The guard position's set, but they need tackles and they need a center. So that would be a plus if Kai Becton is playing snaps for the Jets. Really would
Yeah,
be.
and also Dwayne Brown, I know we talked about this before, he announced he's not retiring, so maybe that's
Oh
an
yeah, he's going back.
option.
Yeah, that's a tackle. Yeah.
That's one of the tackle spots. And is George Font still under contract?
No, he won't. He's not on the team.
Okay, so
No,
so I guess those are two tackles then, and so I guess it's kind of like the middle. I mean, there's Elijah Vera Tucker
he'll be a
at
guard.
guard, and
Yeah.
then it's really those other two spots that are kind of question
Yeah.
marks.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Mhm.
Another guy that the Jets, I thought they were going to get rid of. I actually had it in my offseason sim, Carl Lawson. I thought they were going to cut him. But Robert Saleh said today, as long as he can walk and play, he will be here. So that probably confirms that they won't cut him.
Okay,
Maybe they're going to reconstruct his contract. But I'm not a
yeah.
big look. Carl Lawson, he had a decent year last season, coming off that Achilles injury. Kind of maybe it's
Mhm.
tough for him to get back to full. Maybe next year he's at full speed, and the Jets, have a guy that could get 8, 9 sacks, which would be a plus for the defense. I think I'm
Mhm.
not really. I kind of like that they're keeping him. If he could, take a pay cut, that would be huge for the team, makes more space. But if they think they could keep him and keep him under the budget, I think that's very smart. I think I kind of like him.
Yeah, that was one of the borderline cuts, I think, for both of us for the Jets this offseason. I think one of the no-brainers was Corey Davis, and I guess you'd kind of expect that him to be cut maybe before the league year starts to clear up some space, sign some free
Yeah,
agents. We haven't seen that yet. There have been rumors that maybe he's in the Aaron Rodgers trade. I don't really see why the Packers would request him in that trade. My thought, at least, the thought that given the way things are playing out, usually like Kenny Galladay, a lot of the guys that you cut right away, like Braxton Berrios.
yeah,
I mean, John, I think you still think that they're going to cut him, but I'm not really so sure.
yeah. You know what I think? I think that one of two things: they get OBJ, he's gone.
Yeah.
or he's
Yes.
in the Aaron Rodgers deal, and they think they have a good chance of signing OBJ. I think if OBJ comes, he'll be as good as gone because he has no spot then. So I
Mhm.
think that they're waiting on OBJ if he doesn't sign with the Jets, or if he's not including the Aaron Rodgers deal, he'll stay as a Jet. Which
Yeah.
I'm not. Look, if he
Mhm.
can stay healthy, Corey Davis is a solid wide receiver. The problem with him is he can't stay on the field. Guy
Mhm.
gets hurt every other week. So, I like Davis as a player, but it's going to be an interesting story to follow because you had that kind of as a pencil in. Like if he was going to get cut. I
Yeah.
said it like I think everyone had it as like, oh, you save 10 million and cut Corey Davis. Makes a lot of sense. But now you're right. It's looking like more and more likely that he's going to stay as a Jet. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens
Mhm.
there.
I think, yeah, I agree. Every passing day, it seems like he's gonna be a Jet. I think otherwise, in the off seasons, there have been a few restructures, not that many restructures for the Jets and
Yeah.
Giants. I know Leonard Williams. Obviously, that quote came out today. He is like a ridiculous. He's getting paid something like $22 million this year,
No,
but his cap hits like $35 million.
that
It's
is
ridiculous.
crazy. That's
This was the Dave
ridiculous.
Gettleman like the contract. Oh, like a $2 million cap at the first year, and then the third year is a 30. It doesn't make any sense. This
Yeah,
contract.
Leonard Williams had such a good first season for the Giants. I was like, where was this guy on the Jets? I remember he looked like a defensive player of the year candidate, and then after he gets paid, of course, the
There
play
you
the
go.
play declines. Of course, that always happens.
Yeah, and he's not terrible. He's a good defensive lineman, but he's not like elite. I think he's a top. He's getting paid like a top five defensive lineman. He's not
Yeah,
that, but no, he was good last year. He was dealing with some injuries. About a $32 million cap, and he's not even getting paid that money. He's getting paid like $20 million. It's a ridiculous contract structure,
crazy.
and I think reconstructing it, given that this is his last year under contract, pushes money into the next year. And so I kind of applaud the Giants for being a little bit patient and not overplaying their hands, pushing $12 million next year guaranteed. Now he's on the team for another year. So I kind of remaining patient. That's going to open up a lot of cap space next
Yeah,
year. But at the same time, the Giants. I think we want to win as fans. We want to win, and his contract's a bit of a roadblock.
it is. Yeah, it is. Another Jets note: the Ezekiel Elliott interest. That was a couple days ago, where the Jets were apparently one of the three finalists. That I think that was more of like a wish list, like where Zeke wanted to play. The
Yeah,
Jets.
yeah,
Robert Saleh said today, "We love our running back room." You saw like guys like I think Brees Hall. I wasn't a fan of this. He tweeted out like, "Oh, at Michael Carter, the other running back, we're good here, whatever." Like implying that they don't really want another running back coming in. I'm not a fan of that because honestly, these players have to stop. Like the tweeting's fine, but sometimes it gets a little overboard. Like they just have to like shut their mouths. Like honestly, like it gets a little crazy there in that regard. I think he deleted it maybe 30 minutes after maybe Douglas called him and said, "Dude, you got to delete that. It's a bad look for the team," which is
yeah.
true. But Zeke Elliott's not coming to the Jets. That was his wish list. I don't know if anyone wants him. Like he goes, "Oh,
Mhm,
Bengals, Jets, and what was the other team? It was Bengals, Jets, and Eagles."
mhm,
Eagles come out an hour later. We're not interested in him. Jets probably basically say we're not interested in him. So where is he going to go? I mean,
yeah.
he's a guy that's like he's only 27, believe it or not. He's only 27 years old, but he has so much mileage on him. He's not an effective running back anymore. I was in favor of maybe the Jets bring him in as like a guy like Jamal Williams just scoring touchdowns in the red zone, maybe like on the 2 or 3 yard line, but that's not going to happen, which
Yeah.
I'm not mad
Mhm.
about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that I do think that Brees Hall is kind of set. Like the Jets are kind of set with there showed a lot of guys showed some flashes of potential across the year. Obviously, Brees Hall, we say it again and again, on pace for an offensive rookie of the year campaign, cut short, torn ACL. Michael Carter, not a great year, but even Zonovan Knight showed some flashes. He seems like he'll be the third or fourth running back. And no, well, I think Ezekiel Elliott would be an upgrade over Michael Carter and obviously Zonovan Knight. The Jets, I don't know how much you would have to pay him at this point in his career, but I think the Jets, you don't need to spend that much money on the running back. They already have one good running back, some solid backups. That's not a position where they're in desperate need to upgrade or anything. So I think it's
Yeah,
wise not to go down that route and then
I
keep
agree.
spending on the center market or elsewhere. And they
Yeah.
signed a punter too.
They signed a punter. I was so happy. Probably I should, Thomas Morstead, a guy that's been around for a while.
It's like 43, 42. Perfect.
I love it. He posted a picture with his wife. I'm going to the Jets. Like the Jets beat reporters, they have report nothing. Like you have a guy tweeting out, and then 20 minutes later, my source confirms. Like, are you kidding me? I know it's a punter, and the news is not really significant, but Matthew, when I saw that tweet, I was
And then,
very
then
happy.
they said, and then Adam Schefter that Braden Mance receiving trade interest. for draft pick compensation on
Oh
the
my God. If
market.
Joe Douglas gets a 7th-round pick for Braid Man, build a statue for this guy. I mean, any sort of guy, even if it's like a 7th-round pick from like 2029 or whatever, I wouldn't care. Like
That's
that,
ridiculous.
you get any trade compensation for him. Oh my gosh, that guy is the worst punter in the league.
That's
That
crazy.
guy,
I couldn't believe that when I saw that. I thought he was like he's going to be a cut, I think, or a
you
trade
know
for
what?
Gonzalez.
Adam Schefter definitely did that because Jets fans see that tweet and they're like, "Oh, Jets," and it's probably like, "Oh, they're like, oh, Rodgers is done," and then it's Braid Man. He probably does that as a
Traded man,
troll. Adam
trade
Schefter.
interest
He
across
freaking
the
trolls. Oh, and then I saw like a guy, Connor Hughes. He tweeted out a picture of like Robert Saleh meeting with the media today. He's like, and it was like all other reporters from around the NFL. He's like, oh, a lot of people are interested in Braden Mann being rumored to be interested in. It was hilarious. Oh my
Yeah.
God, you're right, but that was hilarious. I
So
saw
that
that. I
was
was
a
like,
big storyline for the Jets this week, signing a new punter.
yeah, that's the biggest storyline. They definitely asked like 10 questions to Robert Saleh about that today. Yeah, so funny. All right, Matthew, we'll move on. That's enough football talk for now. It's only March. We still got a ways to go for this season. Now
Yeah.
move on to a season that's about to start. The New York Yankees.
Mm-hmm.
Big news yesterday. Anthony Volpe was named the starting shortstop. When I saw this news, I was so happy. He's a kid that came in. They said it was a competition for the starting shortstop job. I didn't know if you believed them. I don't know if I believed them, but they stuck to their word. The kid deserved it. Played his guts out in spring training. Has great stats. I mean, batted like 320, had like a 1.050 OPS. Had great numbers across the board. Great defensively. You saw his arm talent was out of this world. And this kid came into camp and he crushed it, and he deserves the starting job in the Yankees. Stuck to their word, called him up. Very unusual for the Yankees to do this because usually they keep their minor league players up until like 24. This kid's 21, I think, right now. So I was so excited to see Anthony Volpe, who's hyped up to be one of the best, Yankees player. Hopefully he's going to be one of the next Yankees greats. I know that's it's off the expectations for him, but very excited to see what he could do.
Yeah, and I want to be very clear. It wasn't like this was a competition between Peraza. No, it was, but it wasn't like this was the type of competition where Peraza was not good, and then Volpe was like slightly better, and I guess he won the job. Volpe was like the best player out of everyone in Yankees camp. He had like the best camp out of everyone. So and Peraza, no, he wasn't good at camp. He wasn't like terrible. He didn't hit like zero. He wasn't good, but he was okay. And I think that Volpe really, the Yankees, I mean, they had no choice in this. I think if Peraza and Volpe played at even levels during spring training, they would have easily given the job to Peraza. Even if Peraza played a
Agree.
little bit better, they would have given it to Peraza. They were looking to keep Volpe in the minors. And the way that, I mean, all of the media backlash they would have received, there was just no way they could have, not promoted Volpe to opening day roster. He's going to play shortstop opening day, hit ninth. And I think I went from I know you said this too. You said this is one of the least exciting opening days in a while, and then now we're suddenly excited again. I'm very
Yeah.
excited to watch the game on Thursday at 1 o'clock. And so I'm very happy the Yankees did that.
Yeah, how fitting is it? I think he's the youngest player to make their debut for the Yankees since Derek Jeter,
Mm-hmm.
a kid that also batted ninth for the Yankees on opening day. Derek Jeter hit a home run in that
Played
game,
shortstop.
played
Mm-hmm.
shortstop. I mean, everything's lining up. Did you see the picture of him and Derek Jeter? Volpe was like a little kid at like a fan meetup with Jeter. That was crazy. That video of him meeting his family after he heard the news from Aaron Boone, that was special. I mean,
Yep.
it was a great day for Yankees fans. And congratulations to Volpe. I mean, I met him a couple of years ago. Great kid, down to earth. I did tell him, dude, you're going to be the next star here. He laughed at that comment, probably like, oh, this guy's crazy. But that's like, I mean, look, he made the team. He's probably relieved, but he's going to have a lot of pressure. I don't want to
Yeah.
put pressure on this kid. Like, he's 21 years old. I think it's smart for the Yankees to bat him at the 9 hole. It's still an important spot to bat in the lineup because if he gets on base, he can steal base, and you have DJ LeMay who could drive you in. So I kind of like what they're doing with the 9 hole. It takes the pressure off him for not being in the top of the order. I think the Yankees are doing right by him. Matthew, the number controversy, him wearing, is he going to wear 77? Is he going to wear this? I think he said that 77 is meaningful for him because his grandpa, his favorite player was Mickey Mantle, which is kind of cool. I don't see him changing that number. I don't think it's as big a deal as the Yankee fans are making it out to be, but look, 77 is fine. As long as he's hitting, this year, my expectations for him, we'll get into it in a little bit, our stat predictions, but people placing these unlofty stat predictions for like, oh, he's going to hit 30 home runs. No, the kid's a rookie. If he hits 250, go win rookie of the year. Like, there's probably not a lot of competition. So we'll see. I mean, look, this guy, and he's a great defender too. I heard that he didn't have a good arm. What I'm seeing is he makes he has a great arm at shortstop. I mean, I don't see any issues there. He's a better
Mhm.
arm than IKF. I mean, people made it out to be like, oh, his arm is his weakness. I don't see it.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm happy. Yeah, I agree with you. I think batting ninth is more important than batting eighth or seventh for that matter. No, those are kind of like even like in the final years where pitchers were hitting in the National League, pitchers were tending to hit eighth, not ninth. And ninth is very important, right? Because it's like kind of like this, they call it the second leadoff guy. It's
Yeah.
kind of an important position in the order. No, but at the same time, the notion of hitting last in the order does take some pressure off you. So I think the Yankees batting him ninth is kind of the logical conclusion. I agree with you from a stat prediction standpoint. It's not going to hit. He's not going to be like the MVP candidate in his first year in the league. But no, I agree with you. I think the fielding. I haven't really seen the fielding issue. It's not been Peraza. That's like his jam. It's like, oh, the
Yeah.
fielding. That's like his best. It's like maybe he's a better fielder than. That's always who he's compared to. Peraza is a slightly better fielder. But how about we compare? I agree. Volpe to IKF. Volpe to Derek Jeter, who he was okay as a shortstop, but he's like statistically one of the worst shortstops ever. I think Volpe's gonna compare well. He's gonna be able to play shortstop at a capable level, better than Gleyber Torres in 2020, where he was a
Oh yeah.
disaster. And no, I think people are making. I think it's kind of unfair to compare him to Peraza, who that's like his best trait, his fielding. So I think he's gonna be totally fine. Is he gonna? Yeah, I agree. 250. I mean, we'll get into the stat predictions next, but I think he'll have a fine, just
Yeah.
fine.
And now leads to our Yankees opening day preview. This is presented by. No, I'm sorry, we don't have any sponsors yet. Maybe
Mhm.
we'll get to that point. I'm kidding. It's gonna be Garrett Cole versus Logan Webb. Good pitching matchup. Logan Webb actually had a good year last year. I didn't realize he was so good. This guy. I feel like he's been around for so long. Logan
I
Webb.
remember him saying last year that he was a Cy Young candidate or he was going to win the Cy Young last year, and then I thought that
Yeah.
he obviously didn't receive that many votes for Cy Young, so I thought, oh, he must have had a bad year. I checked his stats; he had like almost 200 innings, 2.96 ERA. He had a very good year
Yeah.
last year.
It's gonna be a
Mhm.
great pitching matchup. Hopefully, Garrett Cole pitches a gem. I think he is. I really think he's going to live up to it. He's gonna be hyped up. And what I'm most looking forward to is just obviously, as you said, like Volpe making the roster just makes me so much more excited to watch this game. Makes it so much more intriguing. Aaron Judge's first game as a captain, that's another storyline. How does Aaron Hicks play? He's gonna start in left field. I don't know. People are saying Oswaldo's probably going to start. I still think the Yankees are so stubborn. They want to prove to the world that they did right by re-signing him, and they're going to start him in left field. That's just the bottom, or center field, because Bader's injured, so they're going to start him in center field. He's going to be the center fielder for the Yankees. That's my expectation. If it's Oswaldo, I'll be thrilled, but I don't see it. I think he's going to be like a bench guy, utility guy. I see
Yeah.
Aaron Hicks as the starting center fielder. Unfortunately,
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I would have to agree. I think opening day, the way that they've spoken so highly about guys like Josh. I mean, I originally
oh,
assumed it seems like a foregone conclusion that Stanton's going to DH, but
yeah,
they talk so highly about Josh Donaldson and DJ LeMahieu, and to get them both in the lineup, it means that one of them's going to DH, and it means that Stanton's going to play right field, which
mhm.
means that Judge is going to play center, which means that it's either going to be Oswaldo or Hicks in left, and of those two. The way I basically just said, I said the way they talk about Donaldson means they're going to play them. The way they talk about Hicks means they're
Yeah,
going to play him. No, it's kind of I don't know. I think that no. Is he going to be playing every day like he was slated to last year? No, because Oswaldo Cabrera had a very good spring. He had a very good finish to last year. He was starting those playoff games. Albeit Hicks, I think, got hurt in the playoffs last year. But no, I think he's starting opening day, but I think his role is the fourth outfielder. So I think we'll kind of be spared from the daily
yeah.
misery of seeing Hicks.
I hope you're right, Matthew. I really hope you're right. I
Mhm.
saw on the Talking Yanks, they actually have Aaron Boone on every week, which is going to be
Yeah, that's
interesting.
very cool.
I saw the interview last night. It was a good watch. But one thing that really made me angry was when they're like, "Oh, who's one player that you think is gonna have a great year?" He's like Donaldson, like without hesitation. Like, what are you seeing in this guy? Oh, he changed his stance. He's more level at the plate now before the ball. Like, come on. Like
hmm
this guy is as washed up as washed up could be. I mean, I look at him at spring training. He's hit a couple home runs. That means nothing. He hit well in spring training last year. We all got excited. He see in the playoffs. Aaron Boone? Did you watch him in the playoffs last year? He couldn't hit a foul ball. He couldn't cut. He couldn't. Like, it was strike one, strike two, strike. You're out. Like he was out before you even got to see him at the plate. Like it
Yeah,
was.
and
I
it
just
wasn't
got shot.
even.
Yeah.
it wasn't even he was swinging and missing. He was taking pitches right down the middle all year long. He wasn't even swinging the bat. He was like helpless out there. It was really bad.
I just don't know what they see in him. Like it's gonna be interesting because we have guys, you guys like Josh Donaldson and Gleyber Torres, who I really have a firm belief that they are trying to trade Gleyber Torres, and once they trade him, they'll bring up Peraza. I really do believe that. I mean,
Possibly.
Cashman even said in his press conference the other day, he said we're still fielding calls on a potential trade, and I really think that call maybe it's starting pitcher, but I think it's leaning towards trading Gleyber Torres. I think he's gonna be out of the team. That's my bold prediction. He's going to be off the team by the end of May. I really think they're going to find a partner. Maybe they get a reliever or a decent starter in return, but probably won't get much. Maybe a
Yeah.
prospect, but I think he's going to be off the team and they're going to bring up Peraza. I really think they're still high. I'm still high on Peraza too. He had last year. He had 30 games. He hit pretty well, as you said. His fielding is his you know thing. Obviously, he was known for his fielding, but his hitting looked pretty
Mhm.
solid last year. I think the Yankees are still high on him, and I think Gleyber Torres. Look, they didn't even approach him about an extension this offseason. What does that tell you? The Yankees are probably looking to get rid of him, and that's my prediction that he'll be gone. Josh Donaldson should be gone by the end of
Yeah.
May in DFA fashion. I don't know if the Yankees have the guts to do that. They'll probably just let him play out the rest of the year, but
Mhm.
he should be gone. DJ should be playing third. Should have DJ third, Volpe shortstop, second base Peraza, and Rizzo at first. That's how the infield should be all year, but
Mhm.
probably won't happen with the
Yeah,
Yankees. And
totally agree. I think no, I'm not like totally pro trade Gleyber Torres. I think he's been obviously a struggle in 2020, but he had a good year last year, good two campaigns, 2018, 2019. But otherwise, I agree with you. So I guess let's move into our projections.
yeah,
Today we have to do Johnny Brito. Out of news that Luis Severino is going to miss the year, one or two starts, or maybe more than that. We don't even know. But it's going to be
yeah.
Johnny Brito. I originally thought it was Socrates Brito because there was a Socrates Brito in the organization a couple years ago. Anthony Volpe, Luis Severino, who obviously the injury news comes out about him.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Stanton, Gleyber Torres, Jose Trevino, Lou Trevino, if he, and then we'll just break down the final camp competitions for the final relief pitcher spot and the extra outfielder spot. So let's start with Johnny Brito.
Yeah, Burrito's a guy that's probably going to be your fifth starter with Severino going down, you Rodon going down, so he'll
Mm-hmm.
he'll be slotted in the rotation. He's the favorite there. I really can't put a number how many innings pitched he's gonna have because you don't know how long Severino's going to be out. You don't know if they're going to replace Burrito if he struggles. But I'll give him. I saw him the highlights of him pitch the other day. He has a pretty good changeup. He locates the ball. He doesn't really walk a lot of batters. So I'll put him at like a 4.4 ERA. You know, pedestrian for a fifth starter. Gets the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll say, what? I'll put an innings at him. I'll say if it pitches 50 innings and he gets like 45 strikeouts. I think he does solid in the fifth starter role for the Yankees for the time being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of think this guy might play a little more than we think. Like, oh, everyone's saying, oh, this guy's going to be in for a month. Well, one more pitcher injury, and this guy's starting for 2 months and 3 months. So for everyone who
That's true.
says, oh, this guy, we only have to worry about him for 3 starts, maybe 18 innings. I think it's not going to be the case. I agree. I'm happy you put a 50 inning, around that. I think it's going to be something like 60, 70 innings. I think, and the reason why that he's going to get those innings, I think he might impress in April, and he might be, pretty good. He's impressed in spring training. So I'll be consistent with saying that he impresses in April. So I'll say he has like a 3.8 ERA, which is very good as a fifth starter. And that warrants him, to get those extra starts when somebody else goes down, or maybe even replace Herman at some point in the year, or
Mhm.
even Schmidt if they're really struggling. So I'd say like a 3.8 ERA for maybe 70 innings.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love that. Next, we
Mhm.
got Volpe. Just got named Yankee starting shortstop. We just talked about it. My official stat predictions: he plays a full season, 100, and I'll say 155 games. I don't think he gets hurt. Hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers. He's a young player. Hopefully, he doesn't get hurt there. Uh, I got him. I'll guess right off the bat here. I think he's going to have a 260 average. I'll say 22 home runs, and I'll say an OPS of 770. I think it's a very solid rookie year, and I think that's reasonable expectations for a young kid.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm worried about Volpe, if I'm worried about the Yankees, but something tells me that if Volpe struggles in April, they might quickly demote him, which I really hope they don't do. I feel like once you name this guy
No,
opening starter, this is your guy of the future. You kind of have to play him the full season. I think they have no other option, no other choice this season. Maybe he can play some second base shortstop if that helps him feel more relaxed. But I am a little bit afraid that the Yankees may pull the plug quickly, send him back to AAA to get some more experience. But nonetheless, I think he'll be impressive off the gate. So I'll say that he does play a full season. I just want to voice my concern just in case. But I think he'll
Yeah,
play full season. And but I don't think he's gonna play 155 games. The way that no, I think they're just looking for ways to get Isaiah Kiner-Falefa starts at shortstop or others starts. And it's unfortunate, but I just think that's the case. So I think he might start 130, 140 games. They'll look to get him like an off day once a week or something, even maybe
Mhm.
even more than that. But he'll be 250, I'd say 750 OPS, 19 home runs, and then I think an important stat for him is gonna be like stolen bases. He might have like 30 stolen
that's true.
bases.
Yeah,
And
I
I
think
think yeah, 750 OPS is kind of around a little better than league average, but it'd be a good season, but not like anything superb out of this world.
yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think 20 stolen bases for Volpe is a reasonable. I think he's gonna have a 2020 season, as they call it. So hopefully,
Mhm.
speed is a very important facet that he brings to the game. Like, I think that the Yankees rarely see with their players nowadays. So I think that's gonna
Yeah.
be important for the Yankees to bring in. Yeah. Next we
Mhm.
have Severino. Just got hurt again. I really feel bad for this guy. I mean, this guy can't catch a break. Gets hurt every season. You're looking forward to seeing him pitch. Says he feels good, and then all of a sudden goes down. It just the news hits that he gets hurt, and I really feel bad for him. But fortunately, that's the case. He's probably going to pitch. I think he's going to miss. Last time he had the same injury, he missed what 2.5, 3 months. I don't
Yeah,
think he's going
yeah.
to pitch until June. I really don't believe so. I think the Yankees are going to be extra careful because of his injury history. So I say he pitches 100 and maybe 100 innings even. I really don't think he's going to pitch much this year. I'll say a 3.7 ERA. I think he's gonna be a little rusty coming back. I like Severino, but pitched much in the past 4 years, so the rust is going to be a factor there. And I'll
Mhm.
have him at in 100 innings. I'll have him at 105 strikeouts. So that's what I got for Severino this year.
Yeah, no, I think the way they phrased it, they said, "Oh, he might miss one or two starts," and then they say he's on a no-throw program for 10 days. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, if he's not throwing for 10 days, how is he going to only miss one start? Like that, I don't know. The math doesn't add up there. I think he's probably going to miss a couple weeks or a couple, maybe even a month. Does he come back? I don't think he comes back in June necessarily. I'd see him coming back in May. They're saying mid-April. I'll say probably mid-May. I think that lines up, and I mean, he probably will get injured again. Honestly, just the way his injury history has been. So I think I mean, maybe 110, 115 innings, which would be a little disappointing, but at the same time, the most since 2018 for him. And also, just a quick note on Severino: the highest ERA he's had since including since 2017, is a 3.39 ERA. So no, when he's out there, he's had very good stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I have to remain consistent. So I think when he's out there, he's going to be good. So I'd say I'll give him similar, maybe a little higher than last year, 3.25 ERA across 120 innings, which would be more than last year. Pitched 102 innings last year.
Yeah, no, that would be good if he comes back and pitches to that standard. Well, hopefully that's the case. Next we have Stanton.
Hmm.
Games prediction's tricky with him because the guy seems to get hurt every single season, with the bicep, with the calf, with the foot. I think
Hmm.
you honestly, I think you'll learn the human anatomy, the muscle chart with looking following a guy like Stanton. The guy gets hurt in every single muscle area. But hopefully that's not the case this year. I love Stanton as a player. He comes up big in the postseason, big time situations. So hopefully he stays healthy for the most part. But I have to predict at least one IL stint. So I'm going to have to go with like 130 games for him, which will be pretty good for Stanton. The guy gets injured a lot. 130 games will be solid. Um, a say 270 average. I'm going to guess 30 home runs even and a OPS of 855. I'll say that for Stanton. Another solid year for him as a Yankee, and hopefully he continues. I think he's going to be in the 100 RBI range as well. He drives in a lot of runs when he's
Hmm.
healthy. So
Yeah, I think the comparable season to him is last year he played 110 games, but I think 2021, 139 games. Um, no, I think that'd be we got 139 games from Stanton. We'd be very happy.
yeah,
But we've seen a batting average dip. At least last year, hit 211. The power is still there. I think the power will be there. Just look how strong that guy is. But I think the average dip's going to continue. I think he might hit something maybe a little better than last year, 225, given that the shift is gone. So we'll increase the batting average a little bit from 211. But I think the power is still going to be there. So I'd say I agree. I think 130 games is the right amount. I would say that puts him at around in between 30 and 35 home runs, which is he had 31 last year and 35 in 2021. So So I think that makes total sense for him. And then above 820, 830 OPS.
Yeah, solid year for Stanton there. Next we have Gleyber Torres. I just mentioned him as a potential trade candidate, but I'll have these predictions based on assuming that he's on the team the whole year, because I don't want to predict that he gets traded, because then my predictions go out the window if he's not. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
predict Gleyber Torres. He's a guy that gets hurt a little bit, not as much as Stanton, obviously, because no one gets hurt as much as Stanton. But Gleyber Torres gets injured his fair share amount, but I'll predict one IL stint. I say if he plays a full season for the Yankees, he'll play 135 games, probably bat around 260, uh, home runs, 24, 25, and an OPS of around 750, 760, around what we saw last year. I predict Gleyber
Mm-hmm.
Torres to have.
Yeah, he had 760 last year. I think that's kind of it might be misleading into something. Now, he had a very good season with the exception of August, where he basically had no hits in August, and he played the full month of August. So I think is he going to run into that type of slump this year? I don't think so. 30-game slump, I think that'd be highly unlikely. Maybe like a 10-game slump. So I think the numbers will be better than last year. I think across the full from 2018 to 2022. He's played in between 123 and 144 games every season. So I think he's been consistent in that regard. So I think he'll play 135 games this year. I think his average will be a little better, maybe 270 this year and a 780 OPS with we'll say 24 home runs. I was really saying that's the amount he had last year.
Like it. I like it. Next we have Lou Trevino, the reliever. No, Jose Trevino. We have
Jose
the
Trevino.
catcher. To get so confused, because
Mhm.
one of them is with the E, one of them is with the I, an extra I. So looked at the I one first, but it's the one with the E. Jose Trevino, the catcher, had a gold glove year last year at catcher. Going from Gary Sanchez to Jose Trevino was a blessing for the Yankees fans, seeing actually finally a good
Yeah.
defensive catcher, because
Mhm.
that was needed. Guy that could frame well, block well. You're not worried about every pitch in the dirt going behind the backstop. So that was nice to see from Trevino. And hitting wise, he was stellar in the first half of the season.
Yeah.
Then
Mhm.
struggled second half, kind of game came back to earth. You kind of expect that, because Jose Trevino is not a superstar type of hitter. He's not like a guy like JT Realmuto who could hit 30 home runs. He's a guy that he's a serviceable hitter, but you love that. Obviously, you love the defenses and that's why he's in your lineup. So a guy, his hitting stats. I predict another Gold Glove season for Trevino. I loved him as a defender. I think he frames the ball so well. You don't have those robo umps yet, so the frame doesn't get affected by that. So he's going to benefit in that facet. So, Jose Trevino, the hitting is tricky to predict, but I'll go with, 120 games. I think Higashioka gets some playing time. I guess, 230 average with, 12 home runs and an OPS of around 720, which is pretty good for
Mhm.
him.
Yeah, I agree. They love to find Higashioka some ways to play. I think if this guy's like an OPS in the mid 600s, well, we're not going to complain because the defense is just that good.
Yeah.
The offense doesn't really matter as long as he's not like god awful. And he had 248 last year, so if he's hitting like above 230, I can't really complain. And he was bat to ball. There wasn't like a lot of strikeouts. It wasn't like it wasn't like a frustrating watch, even though he wasn't a great hitter. He grounds out sometimes. Like Gary said, watching the strikeouts is very frustrating. So I think this year he'll have a very similar offensive season to last year, maybe a little step down defensively, just because you can't hold him to that 100th percentile standard, even though he's capable of it. But I think we'll see maybe 235, which is a little lower than last year average, 650 OPS, 10 home runs, 40 RBIs like last year. I agree with that. They love to find Higashioka playing time, so maybe 120 games playing.
Yeah, love it. I love Trevino. He's a very likable guy with the Jose chance. That was fun last year. It was a great story. Next we got the reliever Lou Trevino, who's actually hurt right now. Not sure the extent to his injury. I think it's pretty serious, so we might not see him until June, July. So hopefully, And now we have a competition. We'll talk about the competition for the extra reliever spot in the outfield spot later. But you have guys like Greg Weiser that's in contention, and other pitchers that Matthew we'll talk about later. But yeah, Trevino, if he pitches a half a season, I think he's a pretty solid reliever. Last season before he got traded in the Montas trade, he didn't pitch well for the Athletics. He really had an off year, and that was kind of unusual to see because he's a guy that's pitched in the majors for a while, and he's made a pretty good impact in every year he's pitched. So it's kind of unusual to see an off season for him. When he came to the Yankees, he was pretty solid. You know, he was a good 6 inning guy, not a guy that you want to use in high leverage situations, but a guy that was pretty reliable. Not sure the exact stats with him, but if he plays half the season, you know, I'll say 30 innings, an ERA to maybe 3.5, maybe 3.6, um, and you know around maybe 50 strikeouts. So
Mhm.
Trevino, I think he's a solid guy to have in your bullpen.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know how I feel about this guy. When we first read that injury, we're like, "Oh, this guy's out for the year." But it looks
Yeah.
like he's back to throwing. I don't really know. There's not a lot of updates surrounding him. But I think he's back to throwing. So maybe he's not going to miss as much time as expected. So hopefully he's back in there maybe May, middle of May. I don't even know. I don't know what the timeline would be for him. He pitched in one spring training game this year. But I think the Yankees seem to have found something while he was with the Yankees last year, his ERA went from 6.47 with Oakland to 1.66 with the Yankees. So it seems like they found something. So I'm kind of confident that when he comes back, he could be good. Maybe he's not going to be highest leverage, but he'd be
Mhm.
a sixth,
Yeah.
seventh inning maybe. So I think he'll be something like a high threes ERA, and we're not really, and high strikeouts and a lot of walks, but high threes ERA across, I'll say 43 innings pitched.
Yeah, I like it. So now, we'll go into some spring training updates. There's only 3 days tomorrow, and tomorrow it's almost Tuesday, so almost basically 2 days till opening day. And the Yankees are still making roster decisions. That extra outfield spot is up for grabs. Guys like Willie Calhoun, Rafael Ortega, and Estevan Florial in contention. And if I had to guess who would make it, I could see Calhoun, I could see Florial because he's a guy that doesn't have any minor league options left. So if they let go of him and he doesn't make the roster, there's a chance another team grabs him, which I'm not worried about because he really is not that. I really wouldn't. If I was the Yankees, I would risk it and not have him on the team. This guy seems like have a very slow swing, hasn't really developed into a guy that you can rely on day in day out as like a utility outfielder. So I would take Willie Calhoun. He's hit well in spring training. Lefty swing, maybe good for Yankee Stadium. So I would have him be the extra outfielder. But I think Florial would be the most realistic because the Yankees don't want to risk losing him. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, if I had to pick who they're going to take, I'd say Florial. But I'd say I would take Calhoun. I agree with you. I think he had 20 something home runs with the Texas Rangers in either 2018 or 2019. He was a former top prospect, so there's clearly some potential in there. Um, Ortega, I think he's also kind of. I think the rankings of who I think the Yankees would take would be first Florial, second Ortega, third Calhoun. Ortega played like 120 games last year with the Cubs, can play a variety of positions in the outfield. But Calhoun has hit the best this spring. If this was a true competition during the spring, Calhoun has won it. Ortega and Florial have not had great springs. Florial probably has had the worst spring. But
Yeah.
like you said, former top prospect, the Yankees are kind of stubborn. They like to prove that they were right. So
Yeah.
I think, unfortunately, we might see Florial on that roster, even though he's totally undeserving of a spot.
We'll see what happens. I think because he has that minor league option, I think that's going to the most likely scenario, which is kind of unfortunate because,
Mhm.
look, I'm going to root for him if he's on the team, but he wouldn't be the guy that I would pick out of all these guys based on, spring training numbers because he's looked like a guy that's been absolutely lost at the plate. I saw him hit against a single A pitcher from the Rays, and he looked lost up there. I mean, that's not a good sign. It looks like he hasn't developed as a player. It's unfortunate because he was so highly touted. You were looking forward to him, a big, tall guy, good arm, good outfielder, terrible hitter. It looks like he hasn't really gotten better, and that's pretty unfortunate. I mean, it seems like he's been around the Yankees farm system for like 10 years now.
Mhm.
Florial, you always see like a top prospect. Now I don't even think he's in the top 30 for Yankees prospects, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, no, very disappointing spring. 167 average, one home run. Last year in the regular season, 31 at bats, a .097 average, so really atrocious. And then I guess let's move on to the final relief pitcher spots between Greg Weisser and Ian Hamilton. Ian Hamilton's thrown some like 8 scoreless innings this spring. Looked good, has some previous MLB experience. Greg Weisser, the guy they called up last year at the end of the year, didn't look great, but I think that's the competition for the last release spot.
Yeah, I don't think it's that important because you probably will get guys healthy back again. I don't know. Like these guys, if they make the team, they're probably in reality only going to pitch like probably 10 innings, 15 innings. So it's not that important. But you want a guy that's going to be reliable if you're getting blown out or you're blowing out a team that could come in like low leverage situations. So I think the most likely option probably Greg Weissert because he's been in the Yankees farm system. They're probably more familiar with him. I don't know about Ian. I don't know what Ian Hamilton's story is. Was he with another team or was he with the Yankees farm system?
I think he
I,
was with other teams. I'll tell
yeah.
you what his stats are and stuff. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, Ian Hamilton, I'm not so if they're not familiar with him, I don't think they would take him. But obviously, he's pitched great in pursuing training, and as you said, if it was a competition, he would be the guy that would be winning. And we'll see if the Yankees stick to their word on that. If that's a competition, but usually you take guys that you're most familiar with, and they know a guy like Greg Weiser because he's been around with the
Mhm.
organization for several years. So I
Yeah,
think he's
so
the most
Ian
likely option.
Hamilton, he played with the White Sox since from 2018 to 2020. He played in 14 games with the White Sox during that span, and in one game with the Minnesota Twins. A career with the White Sox of 4.5 ERA, and then with the Twins last year across the one game a 6.75 ERA. So some major league
Okay.
experience. Yeah, if this was a competition, Ian Hamilton would get the spot. So if I had to guess, honestly, I would pick Ian Hamilton just because he's had the better swing. Yeah, I agree, it doesn't really matter. I think the Yankees they might take Ian Hamilton because here's why. Greg Weiser, when other guys come back, they're gonna have to send him down anyway. It feels like Ian Hamilton, you call him up, you add him to that 40 man, you give him a 10-day trial, and if he's not good, you bring up one of the other guys
Yeah.
and you cut this guy. You know, it's not like Greg Weiser. You have to tell him, "Oh, you're up. You haven't been good. We're sending you back down." That's kind of demoralizing. This guy, you give him a real tryout in the major leagues. He's earned it. And then if he's not good, you just cut him. There's no like that. There's no really low risk here, honestly, for me. But so I think they might end up choosing Ian Hamilton.
I agree with that, Matthew. Matthew, we'll see what happens at opening day. Next pod, we're coming out. We're going to be talking about the Rangers. The Knicks playoffs coming up. So super excited for that. So we'll give a playoff preview. Rangers got 9 games left. Hopefully they finish strong. Knicks, I believe, have less than 10 games left,
7?
as 7
Yeah.
games as well. So hopefully they finish strong in that area. Hopefully they get the 5 seed, so they can avoid a good team in the 1, 2, or 3 spots. So go Knicks, go Rangers, and we'll see you next time.